So, in the words of Jim Carrey, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to Forkin Delicious. Today we're here, myself and Shauna.
Hello.
And there you go. And we're going to do Focaccia bread. So, I'm just going to get kind of ready here and get started, and I'll explain as I'm going along. And again, as we say in all our videos, is that a little bit of prep makes everything easy, you know. Now for this one, it's a bread. So we're making focaccia bread, right? And like everything, there's all these stories about how these things came about, and, you know, like about the story about sirloin of beef and beef stroganoff and the names and different things, peach melba, for as an example of another one. So this one, what I was told is that this was a bread that was made for the shepherds, that they could bring up when they were minding the flock up on the pasture, up on the mountain or the hills or the pastures nearby, and they would be able to have this as their lunch. And it would be this with maybe a bottle of wine or a half bottle of wine, or you know, or it could even be cold coffee or anything. But I was told that this was a kind of a staple for them, and it was it'd be like the Irish version of it would be like maybe a cheese sandwich or something, because what we're going to put onto this focaccia at the end will be the different garnishes we're going to use, and you're going to see them at the end of the video. Again, the full recipe is in the comments down below, and we'd love for you to like, subscribe and hit the notification bell. It's a big help to us, and we're trying to get up and going on this channel, so if you can do that, we'd really appreciate it. And so I'm going to start, and I'm going to just explain. Some people take making bread like as if they're creating life, you know, but I'm just making bread, all right? And this is a nice recipe. I think it's a simple recipe, and if you make it once or twice, you'll just remember everything automatically. You won't even have to go and look at a recipe or to remember it, all right? You just remember it automatically, because if you remember through the stages as we go on, that's the best way to remember this recipe. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to weigh out the flour. So I have my weighing scales here. So I'm using strong flour. Now I'm not going to go into the whole detail of why we're using strong flour. We're using strong flour because we need a high gluten content so that it will give elasticity to the dough and allow it to rise. And this is the one dough when you're making it that you really have to work the dough to develop the gluten. All right, and you'll see that as I'm going along. I'll mention it again. So straight up, this is simple to remember. It's 1 kg of flour. All right, and the best way to do it is put the bowl on your thing and set the unit back to 0, and that's at 0 now. And we're going to weigh 1 kilogram of strong flour. We have 649 there. So this recipe is 1 kilo of flour, 2 sachets of dried yeast, or 30 grams of fresh yeast. Then you have a tablespoon of sugar and a tablespoon of salt. And then there's 750 grams of liquid, or milliliters of liquid. And the reason for that, that's the perfect mix almost for a kilo. Now, I'm going a small bit over the kilo. So I'm going to take some of that back out, because you have to be kind of exact when you're doing this. Now, there we go. That's a kilo even. That's lovely. So put our flour up here out of the way. So we have a kilo of flour, and as I said to you, it's 2 sachets of dried yeast. Dried yeast is usually about 7 grams per sachet, so about 14 grams, and then you kind of double it if you want fresh yeast. So it's about 28-30 grams of fresh yeast. You could even probably use less fresh yeast and it would still work, but you might have to let it prove longer. All right, so I'm going to put my yeast in. I'm going to put my salt. I'm just putting that at the opposite side. You don't have to worry too much. Salt will normally kill yeast, but it won't affect the dried yeast. If you were making this with fresh yeast, I would say to add the salt in with the flour, and then put your fresh yeast some warm water and sugar together, mix them together, allow them to mix for a little while, and then with all the rest of the liquid, add them to the flour. Okay, so the sugar here, I'm just going to say that that's a tablespoon, 2 teaspoons, and I just want to make sure I have all the yeast in there, so that's that done. And now for the liquid, I have here, so when I say 750 milliliters of liquid, that liquid can be anything, and if it can be warm, or if some of the liquid can be warm, that will help with the making of the dough. It will help it to rise faster and to work faster. It's not necessary. If I was doing making a pizza dough, I don't actually want it to rise very quickly because I won't be making it in the morning and the pizza's not going to be till night time. So I would use cold water so that the yeast doesn't activate quickly, right? Also, I might put my dough straight into the fridge instead of into somewhere warm because, again, I want to retard the yeast from working, right? But for this, we're making this bread, I want to use it today. So we're going to make it like the way I would make it if I was in work or in the university teaching, all right? So I have in here, this is for the focaccia one, to make my 750 mils of liquid, I have 150 of rapeseed oil, Irish rapeseed oil. I have 150 of white wine, so that adds up to 300. And I'm just going to get 350 mils now of warm water, all right? And I'll explain about that, why it has to be warm. Now, so now I have, just put my bowl in under here. I have my warm water, and I have my oil, and I have my white wine. That's my 750 of liquid. I could easily do the 350 here of the warm water, and I could do 300 of milk, all right? I could also do all milk if I wanted to. If I wanted to use buttermilk, the problem there is when you heat the buttermilk, it'll separate. So what I would do is I would use maybe 700 of buttermilk if I wanted to make a real buttermilk, and I'd use 50 of really hot water added to the buttermilk and then straight into the flour, all right? But for this one anyway, this still makes up to 750. So your basic recipe is 1 kg of flour, 750 of liquid, and then a tablespoon of sugar, a tablespoon of salt, and 2 sachets of dried yeast or 30 grams of fresh yeast. Okay, so now I have all these here together. You need to make sure that the water is not above because we're going to be adding it to some cold stuff here. It's not too important because it will cool down, but you want to make sure that your overall liquid temperature is not above 42 degrees or you will kill the yeast. It needs to be around blood temperature, which is 37 degrees. At 37 degrees, the yeast will grow perfectly. Just think of it, body temperature, your body temperature. So 37 degrees, or what's that in Fahrenheit? Is it 91 or 92? Something like that.
I don't know, we'd have to do a conversion.
We'll see now, it's just about to appear there magically.
98.6?
98.6, we're a mile out. So this is mixing in with the oil, the rapeseed oil and the white wine. And that's going to give the bread quite an unusual kind of texture from an ordinary yeast bread. So this is the mix in here. So now all I'm going to do, I tested that to make sure it was at blood temperature. And you can easily see that by if you just put your finger in for a little second. And if you find that you can keep your finger in there, it's at blood temperature. If your finger gets burnt, it's too hot, all right? And then you know again if it's too cold. But this is just about right now, all right? So the yeast will kind of thrive on this. So just add your liquid. This Kenwood is going to make a little bit of noise, but this Kenwood is today 36 years old and still working perfectly. My mother bought this for me on my 21st birthday because I was always into cooking. So, and I still have it and still working. I'm going to turn it on now. There's going to be a bit of noise, but I'm going to have to say some important things and you're going to have to try and follow through the noise. All right? Okay? Did you all get that?
What was that, Jason?
Did you get that?
No, can you say it again?
I'll do it again, hang on. Just have to keep mixing this, I can't stop. All right? So that's why that's so important, that part.
Much clearer that time.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that's the reason. So now, I'm just going to add a tiny little bit more water to this. Just the tiniest little bit. And now I'm going to let it mix for about 8 minutes. All right? Okay, so you know I was on a joke, I wasn't saying anything, all right? Now, the dough is starting to separate from the edge of the bowl here, so that's a good sign. So like I said, it now needs about 6 to 8 minutes of just constant kneading, and you will actually see the dough. If you touch the dough now, you will feel it's still got a little bit of like grit to it, or a little bit of lumpiness to it. And we'll see when I put it on the table here at the end, when I just give it a little knead before I put it in the bowl, you'll see how lovely and smooth it is. And I'll show you the little bounce back that will be happening as well. And you know you have this right as well if it's if everything is clean from the side of the bowl and you have a nice dough starting there. You can see there's no flour, or there's no bits of flour and water stuck to the side. This bowl is nearly washed. All right, so if anyone in the comments has a Kenwood Chef older than this, you might let me know. But I'm honestly 100% genuine. This is 36 years old since Saturday. All right. Now, we've done about 8 minutes. So, we'll take our dough up. I'm going to show you as I'm taking it out of the bowl here what it looks like. I'll just take this Kenwood. We're finished with this now, so just put it down out the way. I love this spatula, even though it's starting to decay a small bit, but I still love it. I have it a good few years.
Why do you love it?
I don't know, just the shape of it and the size of it, and it does what it's supposed to do, and it's not bending or twisting or, you know, I just like it. I think everyone has a knife that they like, or, you know, a wooden spoon, or can't really talk about the wooden spoon or I'll start to cry, because somebody, I won't say who, broke my favourite wooden spoon, and I'm trying to develop another favourite now at the moment. So when you start to cook, you get the ones you like, and you know, there's certain pieces of equipment you just like, knives. You'll see as we're going through the series, I'll show you some of the stuff and tell you some of the reasons why I like certain things. Now, you can see how the inside of the bowl looks, so you can see it there. So, what you call it, hardly nothing left on that. You can also see that the dough has started to kind of elastise a bit, so it's, you see the way it's pushing, and if we push it down, it's just slowly starting to come back. That will come back more as it proves, all right? So I'm not going to over knead it now because the machine has done that for me already, but I'm just going to show you, I'm just going to shape it a small bit to put it in to let it prove. So you see this? So you see now how it's this lovely smooth shape, right? And also when you touch it, you can feel the warmth of the dough. You can feel it, it's a little bit warm, it's not cold, it's not roasting hot either, but you can tell, I can tell straight away this is going to be a nice dough, all right? Because I didn't have to add too much extra water. Sometimes you do, because it depends on the humidity of the flour, all right? But this was a nice one, and we really didn't have to do much extra to it. So now I'm going to put that on a tray, and I'm going to let it prove. And I'm just going to put a bit of rapeseed oil on the bottom, just so it won't stick. Usually I'd use a bowl for this, but we can put it into this. And then I'm just going to cover that now with some cling film. Actually, I'll cover it and I'll bring it back to you and I'll show it to you, because the cling film is down at the very end. So now, that's it wrapped really well, because we're creating like a little incubator here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in the hot press, and it's nice and warm in there, because we've solar power and we've water heating anyway, so it's going to be nice and warm. It'll be maybe about 32, 33 degrees in there, so it'll be perfect to allow this to rise. This will take it could take about 45 minutes to an hour and a half for it to rise, but you will see it'll actually stretch this cling film, all right, and it will create like a bubble underneath it, I hope.